Sewin Pin. Welcome back to the Khmer Post USA television show. I was away for a few months during the COVID-19, shortly after the COVID-19 hit, due to family personal emergency. My mother was very ill and she finally passed away just a little 2 months ago. But I took some time to make a comeback. But here I am, my first guest returning to the television show this week is Vanna Howard. Vanna Howard formerly served as regional director for Congresswoman Niki Tsongas for 13 years, and she recently declared her candidacy to run for the 17th District State Reps, which include downtown Lowell and Belvedere. She will join us in momentarily. I'll bring you the first and only exclusive interview, one-on-one with Vanna Howard. Vanna Howard is running for the 17th District State Rep, challenging a long-time incumbent, Dave Nangle, who served over 20 years in this post. Earlier this year, he was indicted in 28 counts by the federal charges, including misuse of campaign money, corruption, and many other counts. However, he is in and running for the re-election because he can. The hearing won't be happening anytime just soon because due to the COVID-19, courts are closed. Now let's welcome Vanna Howard. Vanna.
Hi.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Welcome to the Khmer Post USA television show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
I was excited to see that you announced to run the 17th Middlesex District representing us. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. It's great. You know, we are, again, thank you so much for having me, Sobin. This is great. Thank you for the opportunity.
It's my pleasure. Pleasure is really all mine, really. Just so happy to have you and just so excited that you running one again, and wanted to say that, it seems to me that you prepared for this opportunity all your life. All you deny it, but you served Congresswoman Niki Tsongas as her regional director for 13 years. So this job to me is a little bit smaller comparing to what the position you used to hold. So tell me about your previous experience. What makes you think that this job you're ready to tackle, this position?
Yes, so who knew, right? When I decided, running your first campaign in a pandemic. So it's a challenge. No one's ever been in this situation before. So everyone is in this, first time for everyone, really. So, we got creative how to reach the voters because, you can't go meet them in person because of the pandemic, because of the guidelines, the social distancing, to keep that 6 feet social distancing to keep us all safe, So it's so far so good. Like you said, I have, I worked for Congresswoman Niki Tsongas for more than 10 years as her regional director, Greater Lowell Regional Director. I have, any federal related issues, we tackle even states or local issues, anyone that reached out to the Congresswoman's office, we always, we were there to serve, ready to serve, willingly, to serve on the behalf of the almost 800,000, roughly almost 800,000 constituents in the 3rd Congressional District. And, when I decided to run in this pandemic, when I first announced, it was April 30th. That was my official date to announce to run for the 17th Middlesex District. And it's, we need to, this pandemic really the big issues, major issues right now is getting everyone back to work, to recover our economy, and to, issues that I care about for so many years. So many folks, as you know, in this community have stepped up since the pandemic, since the quarantine hit that early March, healthcare, racial injustice, those are the things, affordable housing, public health, especially the most vulnerable communities, that most impacted, the seniors, communities of color right now. And, so many issues. Right now it's the right time. I think it's the right time for me. I said, people have asked me over the years, encouraged me really to run for a long time. But as you know, timing is everything. And, my son just graduated from Lowell High School. And this pandemic, with my experience, my background in this community for more than 2 decades, I strongly believe that I have the skill set, the experience to get us through this pandemic, short term and long term.
I was gonna say, this is not your first drill, although it's the first time you running an office for yourself, but you work side by side with Congresswoman Niki Tsongas for 13 years. That's 6 election.
12 years, actually 12 years.
For a long time.
Close, yeah,
so
for a long
it's
time.
really not your first run around the block, but
no.
With the challenge of the pandemic that makes your campaign really hard, it's very courageous of you to step forward to run during this time. But I was reading some of the stuff off your website that, some of the key issues that you wanted to really bring our city, the district forward to the next level. I think for downtown and certain area, although such diverse, not just race, but also economic. Like I live in a downtown area for 7 years. And I think the challenge that we facing in this district specifically is the economic and housing disparity. We have so many subsidy housings that I think it's more than regular residential, let's just say, per se area in this particular downtown area. And it's one of those decisions that as a city, they made a few decades ago to let federal and state coming in, send the money and revise the city, build all these housings. And now it ends up, we resolve the problem for short term then, and then we end up stuck with the result for multi-generation people kind of stuck in this stage that not able to get out the poverty. And our former state rep represented this district more than 20 years, and we did not see that change. So I want to see, with your candidacy and strong background as where you're coming from, do you have a solution to resolve such issues? Let's say short and long. What do you think?
That's a very excellent question. That's on everyone's mind. Before the pandemic, as we had housing crisis. And so with this pandemic, that's even exacerbate even more, with the housing, affordable housing. And so, every resident of the Commonwealth deserves a healthy, affordable place to live. And so, with the spiraling costs, and you mentioned about, poverty, going in circle, if you in poverty, it doesn't appear that you can get out of it, with the rising cost of, and lack of supply, really, not to mention reduced participation on the federal level, right? The Massachusetts needs to engage in innovative solutions to growing the housing crisis. You know, so like I said, you know, we tackle how do we handle housing crisis before the pandemic. Now with the pandemic, people lost jobs, you know, can't afford to pay their rent, and so I am all for extending the rent, you know, the renter moratorium to protect the eviction of the renters, and also to protect homeowners as well. And you know, and when we can all do this together, perhaps the CARES Act, you know, the CARES Act needs to, we need another CARES Act to help with addressing the housing crisis, the affordable housing. I mean, nothing is going to be perfect, but I think if the state, the homeowners, the renters, you know, we can come together and address the issue. So you can't, especially now during the pandemic, you can't throw a family out on the street when we're trying to keep everyone safe. So that's not a solution, you know. And so, you know, how we still, you know, we still have a housing crisis. And I don't know, with this pandemic, you know, that's gonna, you know, like I said, exacerbate the issue even more. And so we need better schools results. I mean, everything come together, right? Not just housing crisis. We need to address better schools, right? We need, how are we gonna send students, teachers back to school? We need to know that it's safe before we can even send our students and our parents and our teachers and our guardians. So, and that's another issue that we need to address also. And that's happening soon, right? School is starting soon in a few weeks. You know, better healthcare, better wages. I mean, those are the things in order to get everyone back short-term and long-term to address these issues right now that we're in this pandemic, economic recovery, affordable housing, public health, so many issues. And then, you know, what happened to George Floyd, you know, Breonna Taylor, you know, Ahmaud Arbery, you know, the racial injustice that's going, you know, that's happening across the nation. How do we address those issues? You know, Black and brown folks are being, you know, are being killed almost daily for hundreds of generations now, hundreds. And this is just because based on the just the color of their skin. You know, you and I, you know, we're, you know, women of color. And so I'm sure, and I have dealt, you know, I have experience, personal experience, discrimination, racism, you know, at a young age. And so, yeah. And so we need to address those. Education, childcare. Oh, childcare. I mean, if parents, if they are called back to go to work, but without childcare, how can they go back to work, right? And so those are so many issues that we need to address. And environmental issues, that's another issue. We need to move away from fossil fuels, you know, and immediately, you know, and go with 100% renewable, you know, energy, battery operated buses. And so, I mean, there's so many issues to address. So it's just, but we can do this. We can address these issues if all of us can come together. It's all in the mix to address, you know, to address housing, everything relate to housing, especially housing, affordable housing, stable housing for mental health, you know. Without stable housing, you know, what's that do to your mental health, right? Especially now when we're isolated, we're alone. There's a lot of, you know, there's loneliness and in isolation because of this pandemic. However, it's tough enough to get your mental health, you know, serviced, but if you don't have a place to stay, if you don't have a stable housing, how do you address your mental health, you know, effectively? And so, yeah, this pandemic is just, but I am hopeful that if we all come together, we can address all these issues together and work towards a solution, you know, together.
With the challenge that posed because of the pandemic, I think we probably looking for short term. Let's say in a year, we somewhat bounce back to normal or where we were, or at least whatever that new normal going to be, like assuming back to
Yes.
where we were before the pandemic, that we hope. If elected by then, you will be into half year serving as a state rep. What would be the projecting longer term goals that you hope to bring to our district here? And I think what a lot of people who wanted to do business in downtown, who wanted to move and buy homes, live in Lowell, in the 17th district, I think we wanted to make sure that the place is a promising place where we can raise our young family for the school, decent school, safe neighborhood, property values is going up, cleanliness. These are the as parents and as young business owner, we looking forward to, but this is in the last 7 years, I wasn't able to I lived here, I work here, I own business here, but I wasn't able to really, truly planted my root here because of those were still in questions. And I have not seen much progress.
Yeah,
specifically in downtown. We have seen a lot of construction that's going
right.
on. But what does that do for us as residents?
Right.
I think, and as business owner, can you,
Right.
what's some of the new thing that you would hope to change for us?
Yeah, that's a good question. Again, hopefully I'm successful on September 1st. But so if I am successful, if the voters, have their trust in me and voted for me, we'll have to see then what it will look like in 1 year from now. Right now, with this pandemic, it's a day-to-day situation, And so again, going back to dealing with, safer school, getting people back to work, all the small businesses right now, as you can see, we want all this business to survive and strive, not just survive, but strive. We need to stop the bleeding now. Now is the time. So for 1 year from now, if you want to, improve the economy, everyone's working again, everyone's safe, whatever that new normal look like, let's everyone come together now and do it now. Stop the bleeding now before it gets worse in 1 year from now.
And I think you mentioned earlier about regarding racial injustice, and we as women of color, I think we are at some point in our life, we all experience the discrimination. But I think when people look at you, they was like, wow, a Cambodian person served for the Congresswoman for over 10 years. Amazing. Can you tell us a little about your background, just where, when you arrived to the US and where you did your study and what drew you into politics in the first place? That's what's fascinating.
Thank you for that question. I arrived here, we settled here as a refugee with my mom, my half-brother, and my stepfather in 1981. Arrived here in Massachusetts, really, first stop. Not a word of English, like so many of us refugees, we arrived here from the refugee camp in Thailand to here, not a word of English. So I didn't speak a word of English, and that was at the age of 11. But, us refugees, we are very resilient people, we went through the 4 years of the Khmer Rouge, under the Khmer Rouge, and as you know, almost 2 million people were killed and slaughtered, so not a word of English, new culture, new country, we survive, we struggle, and that 4 years, 6 members of my family, my dad, my grandparents, my 3 siblings, all died there. So yeah, but anyway, going fast forward, I struggled for many years with learning English, but slowly, got to speak English. And then my Khmer is actually is not as good as my English anymore, because that's what happened. We're here, we need to learn English in order to be, to adapt to the new culture, and so your focus is on learning the English so that you can, survive and strive in this new country. And so, I graduated high school here. I went to college here, and my first job, actually, my first professional job after college was at a law firm here in Lowell, so that was in 1991. So it was a law firm. So I learned a great deal of, about law, about what's going on in the law field. So that was fascinating to me, and then from there, I went to the district attorney's office, Middlesex County District Attorney's Office. I actually demoted myself. I went from being a bilingual legal secretary to a receptionist at the DA's office, because I needed to have health insurance. At the law office, they didn't cover, they didn't have health insurance coverage. So I saw an opening, and I applied, and I got it, because they cover full insurance coverage. And I needed, because I needed for me and my daughter. At the time, I was a single mother already. And so I needed that coverage for me and my daughter. And then from there, I went to the DA's office again, but this time in Boston, in Suffolk County District Attorney's Office in the homicide unit. So dealing with all homicide cases. So another fascinating career there. I was there for 10 years. Fascinating. And then from there, I went to work for the Congresswoman Niki Tsongas' office. Was her constituent services representative first. And then within 5 years, I became she promoted me to be her Greater Lowell Regional Director. I handled various federal cases, immigration, housing, Social Security, veteran issues. And Niki taught me a lot, so I was fascinated between law and politics. So between, at a law firm, started out at a law firm, and then almost 13 years at the DA's office, combined Middlesex and Suffolk County DA's office, and then to the Congresswoman's office. So law and politics if now is my two things that I am passionate about, because you need both really in order to help the community, And so my background, my experience in both, in public service. So I am forever a lifelong public servant, and I've been doing this now for more than 2 decades. And Niki taught me a lot, politics, it's the art, it's the art of how to run, of all the possibility, I'm so grateful and honored, that she gave me that opportunity. And politics, as politics, we come together and we put our heads together how to build bridges, how to listen. Listen is very important. When you're trying to help anybody, listen, and and how to be effective. If you want to represent, anyone, you need to be able to listen, to be an effective leader, and that's very important. If you don't have those skills.
I really like that you shed on some new keywords into, not a typical kind of interview that I usually got from politicians, that politics is really an art.
It is an art.
And listen and effective leaders. These are strong keywords, the people who really in it a long time and knew how to get it done and be effective.
Accessibility and transparency, that's a thing. Do you know that I have not changed my phone number in 25 plus years? I have the same phone number.
13. How about that?
I have the same phone number for 25 plus years, so that people can still reach me, and people still do reach me. I left the Congresswoman's office now for almost 2 years. People still reach me. to, to ask, oh, where should I go for this? I have a question on this and this and this. So because I have known me now for over 2 decades, so they know the connection that I have in the city and beyond, not just this city. When I worked for the Congresswoman, she represented 37 towns and city, 37 towns and city in the 3rd Congressional District. And that's almost 800,000 people. Just imagine one member and 9 total, and they have almost 800,000, 37 towns and city combined. So we were across the entire district, not just here in Lowell. So we were out there every day, 7 days a week, listening, and on behalf, represented the Congresswoman in her behalf, and so, and my husband, really, what drawn me, before politics, what drawn me was my husband. So at the law office where I met my husband, he talked politics all the time. So that's another thing where it got me very interested, my first professional job at a law office, that's where I met my husband. And so he always talked politics, his family, his late dad actually ran for Congress when he was in Ohio. And even when he was in Ohio, now this is a very interesting story. So Paul Tsongas, when he ran for the presidency, my late father was in Ohio. My late father loved Paul Tsongas then when he was a candidate, and he passed away before he even knew that his daughter-in-law worked for the the widow of Paul Tsongas, who he loved. And that's
It is fascinating, and we
yeah, that many years later after he passed away, I went to work for for Paul Tsongas' widow. Yeah, interesting. So he passed away before he saw me going to work. So.
Well, we have several more minutes coming in our 30-minute segment. I'd like to have an opportunity for you to tell what cities, which part of the city will be included under the 17th district.
Okay, as you mentioned earlier, in the 17th Middlesex district, we have downtown Lowell, all the entire Belvedere, part of South Lowell, Chelmsford Street, half of Westford, and by Woburn Street by the 495, and then one precinct in Chelmsford, precinct 4.
And how are people going to vote on September 1st? Are the polls open?
So there is a vote by mail. I'm sure the majority, almost everyone should be receiving the application, asking them whether they want to vote by mail or vote in person. So if you prefer to vote by mail, you should return your application back and request for the ballot to vote by mail. And if you choose to vote in person, the primary is September 1st.
And can we just go to a poll like a regular election?
Correct. I'm sure it's going to be, a little bit different, where I'm sure that 6 feet social distancing, certain numbers of folks can get inside, at a time. So I'm sure it's going to be a little bit different, where you can't just, go in. But everything should be the same. You check in, they give you a ballot, and then once you're done, you check out, and with your ballot. I'm sure everyone's going to be, if you're going to vote in person, I'm sure, especially now, only less than 3 weeks away, mask, I'm sure, will be required. And that's 6 feet social distancing. Okay,
now we just on point for 30 minutes segments already. Thank you for being on with me today.
Bye.
With you.
Thank you so much. That just flew by. Did it really? Half an hour already went by?
Yes. We're looking forward to talk with you again soon, before the primary and after the primary.
Okay. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
My very best wish to you.
Thank you.
And see you on the other side.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Say hi to Aiden.
I will.
All right. Take care.
That's it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today for this segment. That was Vanna Howard, candidate for 17th District Representative. vote on primary for the primary on September 1st. Thank you for joining me today, and see you then. Bye-bye. This segment was sponsored by Senior Whole Health. Thank you.